All right, well, wow. Good evening. My name is Christy Parks. Most of you know me. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director. We welcome those of you online, and I'm really excited about our guest speaker tonight, Meghan Schmitz. She's going to be talking about senior living and when to make decisions and all that fun stuff. And I just wanted to do one housekeeping thing. If you are available on, let's see, what is the date? 10/21. We are still looking for trunks for the trunk or treat. We're anticipating over 300 kids, and so we would love for you to sign up. There are sign-up sheets on your tables, or you can email info@sunrisefamily.org if you would like to donate a trunk. But with over 300 kids coming from the community, we definitely want to have at least 15 or 20 trunks, and I think we're up to about 8 or 9 so far. So anyway, before Meghan gets started, I'm going to say a little prayer, and then we will leave it to Meghan. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Be with Meghan tonight as she helps all of us maybe walk away tonight with a little more knowledge of such an important subject, and that she teaches us that we're not alone no matter our age or situation. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Meghan.
Thank you, Christy. So my name is Meghan Schmitz, and I am the Executive Director at Avalon Park. It is an independent living, senior living community. It is an all-inclusive community that offers a true age-in-place concept. And tonight I wanted to present to you a little bit on senior living options for those who, I know there were some questions on options that are out there, but also too on the aging population and how it does impact our workforce and the prevalence of caregiving. So if there's anything that we want to skip past, we can at any point. If you have questions as I'm going through the information, please raise your hand. I'm happy to help with those as well. And I think Jim is going to also take control of some questions maybe on the at-home side. So I'd love to hear your questions and answer those for you. So this is the very first slide. This is our aging population, impact on the workforce, and senior living options. And today we're going to go through the agenda here with adult caregiving. It is a growing need. More and more people are entering this space of having to have a caregiver help them out in one way or another. It might be you, it might be a friend of the family that helps out. Understanding the aging process and when it's time to make a move. A lot of people ask me that question. So each person is kind of individual, so we'll go through those options. And then the last thing would be the senior living options and what's available, what's out there. Senior living is not one thing for every person. There's many options out there, and we're going to discuss that, and even some financial options that are available to people that might not have been something you thought of to help pay for that. So in the past 12 months, have anyone, you or anyone in your family, gone through needing care for a loved one? Raise a hand, anyone? The prevalence of caregiving, a lot of these slides I'm going to show you, they've got some really just interesting data on them. So I'm go through them, and if you do want a copy of this presentation, I can get your email address at the end of the meeting today, and I'd be happy to share this with you. But this is just really interesting that with the prevalence of caregiving, 40% if you look at the slide here, 40% live together, and that has grown 34% since 2015. We're going to see the trend here is how many people are getting into the senior living space and needing caregiving, and that number is just growing exponentially every single year. 81% of caregivers are from the ages of 18 to 49, take care of somebody in their own home, or 50 years or older. 74% of caregivers 75 or older are taking care of recipients that are 75 years or older. 89% of caregivers are taking care of a relative. These numbers are just really interesting to me because it just shows how many people we're seeing today that are taking care of somebody. and how young it starts. People that I talk to on a daily basis, I have these daughters and sons that are, they're raising their own family and have kids at home that are very young that are dealing with some of these situations. The next slide is the prevalence of caregiving. This just talks about just like who is our caregiver. Typically it's a female from the ages of 50 to 64, which would make sense. That number, today, 60% of all women are in the workforce, and 75% of middle-aged women are still working. Close to half of all female caregivers are in that sandwich generation. So that sandwich generation is when they're taking care of their family at home, but they're also taking care of their parents as well. The average age of the recipient of care is 69 years old. This slide is, I think, probably the most fascinating here. It kind of shows you see in the middle where the turquoise is, where it says the baby boomers. The baby boomers are who we're really seeing. We've got the silent generation that was from the years 1925 to 1945. The baby boomers are what we were all told about. That was the silver tsunami that was coming upon us, is what we call it. And there were 78.2 million people born from the period of 1945 to 1965. And you'll see like Generation X had 69.5 million people. The millennials, anyone from 1985 to 2005, there was 100 million births those years. Look at the last one, the Generation Alpha. This is my youngest son, he's in this, 2 billion births from 2005 to 2025. So we thought the baby boomers had the most people. There's a lot more coming. The aging population, this just kind of talks about that tsunami. 65 plus population will more than double between the years of 2010 and 2030. The 75 plus population is going to increase 77% over that same period. This talks about the aging population and as far as the care needs go. And we talk about ADLs in my space, and ADLs are activities of daily living. So this is when somebody needs help with going to the bathroom, dressing, transferring, using the toilet, or even eating. So it shows on here, 25% of seniors between the ages of 75 and 84 need help in at least one activity, one of those activities. And then you kind of see the percentages over to the right of 80% need assistance with transportation, 78% need grocery shopping. These are all the things that they cannot do any longer at their own home, which would mean they would have to have somebody come into their home and take care of them or move to a community. And there's several different types of communities we're going to talk about that can provide different levels of assisted living or more. And then this one just kind of talks about some of the symptoms that people will be experiencing. Yes? I'm sorry, yeah, we'll go back to that one.
What does the IADL stand for?
IADL is instruments of instruments of activities of daily living. So shopping, housework, preparing meals, managing money, and taking medications. Those are all going to fall on the IADL. So still very important. And a lot of people will lose the ability to pay bills. Maybe they're having some memory issues, and that would be a sign that I would see like as a daughter and say, hey mom, I noticed like the bills are starting to stack up and your electric's getting shut off, or things like that they might see where maybe we know something's going on with their memory. So that would be the IADL. Good question, thank you. This last one here that I have up here, these are just some of the chronic conditions that we experience as we get older. Our vision, macular degeneration is with your vision. You lose the ability to see peripheral, and it becomes a very narrow spot. So it makes it very difficult to see where you're going, and then hence the reason for falls maybe. People not being able to clear the bed when they're walking around it and might have a fall, or a fall in the shower, not being able to cook properly because of that vision. Hearing impairment, arthritis, osteoporosis, memory loss, heart disease. Parkinson's is a really prevalent thing that we're seeing a lot more of, people with this disease that affects a lot. It affects their motor skills, it affects their memory, depression, diabetes, all chronic conditions that will start to occur in some people, which would prevent them from being able to take care of themselves. The next slide I'm going to show you, this is the strain and stress of caregiving. Everyone knows it's difficult to take care. It's difficult to take care of our children, but then you have an adult who knows everything you're telling them to do, and it becomes very stressful for the caregiver. So this is just a slide that I thought was really important to kind of show. 17% of caregivers feel their health has declined as a result of caregiving. It's real. It's very stressful. 30% of caregivers consider their caregiving situation to be very emotionally stressful. And then 66% of working caregivers get to work late, leave early, might have to take off work to help take care of their loved one. And these next slides kind of talk about the impact on the workplace of what that means when that caregiver has to take off work. So these are, and again, just very interesting slides for the data. So it just shows that half of adult caregivers spend up to 8 hours weekly on caregiving tasks. So you'll see on the left-hand side, this is the percentage of the adult caregivers. So on that 1 to 8 hours, 48% of adult caregivers are spending 30% of their time taking care of somebody, 1 to 8 hours a day, or week rather. And then it kind of trickles down, a little bit smaller. 22% take care of somebody 9 to 20 hours a week. And then down where it shows 11% take 40 hours or more in a week is 11%. This is the missed day. So people do end up missing days of work when somebody might have to take them to a doctor appointment, physical therapy appointment. A lot of times people can't get to these on their own, so they're going to have somebody drive them because they've lost the ability to drive. So this just shows men and women how many days they're having to miss in a year of work. That adds up. And that, again, I think also it increases the stress level because you've got what you know you have to do with your heart and your family over on one side, but then you also know you got to be able to keep a job too to support taking care of that person. This one shows just some data just on the profit loss, what it would actually cost to have a person in the workforce off of the clock and having to put somebody in, maybe supplement that work, and what that's going to cost the employer. This next slide here talks about adult caregiving and need for resources. So there's, in 2009, this was the National Alliance for Caregiving survey that reported a strong need for information on resources. So the types of information requested was safety in the home. That's always, I think, that one of the main drivers why people are leaving their homes to go into either having the caregiver in the home to help or to move them into a community setting. Activities, we see the socialization is a big deal. When COVID hit and everybody was locked at home and they couldn't do things, finding a need for that social aspect was so important, and having activities for them to do was really, really important. We saw a lot of people coming to us that just said, I'm bored, I need socialization, I need friends, I need family to help to do stuff with. And then the last one was choosing a provider. A lot of people just don't know what they don't know. There's so much out there, and that's why there's people like me and other resources that are out there that if you guys have any questions afterwards, we can kind of go over some more resources for maybe a specific situation that you're looking at. But choosing a provider is a really big deal because it's so personal for that person to get that care from somebody. So you want to make sure it's the right fit. This one, it talks about what changes have you observed in someone who has aged. And this is kind of that a way to understand when is the right time to make the move. So some of the aging process, some of the physiological changes can be the arthritic changes in the joints, decreased mobility, having a hard time getting around, not sleeping well, slower reflexes. Maybe if they're driving a car, having somebody that has slower reflexes is it's probably not a good idea to be driving anymore. Increased frequency of urination, especially at night. We see a lot of people who fall in the middle of the night because they're going to the restroom so often. Increased sensitivity to medications. As we age, our body starts to metabolize our medications differently. Again, that can also lead to people having symptoms like balance issues or fogginess or dizziness. Again, areas where we need to make sure that somebody's there to help them safely. Diminishing senses and shortness of breath. I have many people I've talked with where they lose the sense of smell. So something could be burning and they have no idea it's burning because they can't smell it. Just lots of things that kind of happen as we get older. This next one talks about oversight. Oversight is key, and that's where I come in as a community. I'm community number one here. What a senior living community can do for you or do for your loved one. So simple adaptations. When we look at these communities for our loved ones, there's a lot of things that we've done to make sure that the buildings are safe, that they have wider hallways, that they have toilets that are taller. A lot of goes into the planning on putting these senior living communities together. Keeping track of medications, depending on the level of care that somebody might need. It's really important to have somebody like a nurse managing the medications, the frequency. Somebody has to go to a doctor because of a fall or something, they might adjust the medication slightly to help them out. So having somebody keep track of all that is really, really important. I'll give you one example too. I had one lady who fell and they couldn't stop the bleeding, and they found out she was taking a vitamin K supplement, she was taking a baby aspirin, and then she was on a new medication from her doctor, which was also a blood thinner. She was on 3 different things that would cause her blood to be so thin. So when she had the fall, they could not get her to stop bleeding. So they learned that. So keeping track of those medications, the doctor probably would have said, hey, if you're taking that vitamin K and that aspirin, stop taking that anymore. This medication is all you're going to need going forward. A medical consult when needed. There's always those times where we have to have somebody available immediately. Getting into a doctor, when was the last time you called the doctor and tried to get in the next day? Very, very difficult, especially when you get into these specialized medical doctor appointments, like going to see a neurologist, going to see a pulmonologist, a urologist. It's hard to get into these doctors, and sometimes it might be a month before you can get in, or 2 months to get in. It's hard to get into these places, so having doctors that make these regular visits to the communities is really beneficial because they can get seen right away. And then encourage regular exercise and good nutrition. That's so important. I always tell people, use it or lose it, because if they're not moving, it's just you get stiffer and more rigid. That's when you start to see more falls happen. A lot of things happen when we don't move. Understanding the aging process. Changes that are not normal and maybe symptoms of a treatable illness. So some people say that, as we get older, we're going to have more confusion or forgetfulness. Not necessarily, but it could be a sign of a symptom that's going on that might be like a urinary tract infection. So we get to know these residents that live in our buildings very intimately because they have patterns. And you start to see, okay, somebody is maybe they're starting to develop a shuffle, or they're starting to be a little bit more confused. A difference in their personality. They might be more upset and easily frustrated. There's usually something going on. When we see those things, there's something medically going on. So usually it's a urinary tract infection. Could be medication mismanagement. There's a lot of different things. Unexplained change in weight. People who have heart disease can gain more water weight. So there's lots of different things that we'll see with residents to know that something might be going on and might require a further appointment with the doctor or a visit. This next one talks about warning signs. The following warning signs of memory loss should be noted to your physician. Memory is probably the biggest thing why people are making a change from the home to a community setting for safety alone. Memory changes that disrupt daily life, like I said, like paying the bills, not keeping the grass mowed, not taking care of the home on a regular basis, those kind of things will add up. And challenges in planning or solving problems become a real challenge for people who have memory issues. Difficulty completing normal tasks, cleaning the house on a regular basis, or remembering to feed the dog or take the trash out, little things like that. New problems with words. If we start to see somebody who's just constantly forgetting words and they can't recall, there's no recall, those are concerns for us when that might be a reason to go talk to your doctor and look into that a little bit further for memory loss. Decreased and poor judgment, all things that would maybe look into like a memory, something going on with someone's memory. This is one of the questions I get from a lot of people, and it's how do we know when it's time to make the move to senior living? There's a lot to that question. A lot of times, people want to stay in their home. That's the biggest thing. I want to stay in my home. I've been here. All my memories are here. So it's hard just for the person's just to leave that. It's so personal for them. And so some of the things that we look at are isolation and loneliness. The COVID was the biggest thing why people left their homes to come into a community setting. Loss of a spouse. Spouse might have been the one that handled everything for somebody. Maintenance or safety care issues can make being at home alone really difficult, unmanageable. They lose the ability to be able to physically take care of the home and take care of a lot of things that are important to them to get to a doctor appointment on time. They might skip a doctor appointment because they just don't have time to do it. They can't figure out how to schedule their days. And although I'll just get it the next month. I'll go see them the next month and keep rescheduling things. But there's multiple housing options available today. The first one on the left is independent living. That's going to be the lowest level of care. Usually in an independent living setting, there's no care. So like I said, Avalon Park is independent living. We have options there to help people as they grow. In some situations, you might have a community setting like in this area in St. Charles County, you've probably heard of Del Mar Gardens. That's going to be, they've got independent living, they've got assisted living, they've got skilled nursing, Lutheran Senior Services off of 94. Those are all, we call those continuing care communities, and those are going to offer the independent living all the way through. So then once you step up from independent living, you're going to move to assisted living. Assisted living is where you're going to find they're licensed. They're licensed by the state of Missouri, so they're going to have to follow regulations. People there are going to need care with their ADLs. They might need a little bit of assistance with medications. They might need a lot of assistance. There's different levels there, and why it says the 1 and the 2, you won't find many of the assisted living 1s anymore. Most of them are assisted living 2. Assisted living 1 is when somebody needs assistance with one person to help them with their activities of daily living. And when it jumps to the number 2, that's when somebody might need 2 people to assist them with an activity of daily living. So it might take 2 people to get them out of bed and get them to a toilet or get them out of the shower. It's going to take 2 people. So they can go from a lower level of care in an assisted living level 2, but then they can also get a really higher level of care when they need it. And they'll generally have like different packages. Care packages. So one package might be a little bit less expensive and it might be just medication management, or all the way on the full spectrum where they need full care. They need care getting dressed, medications, going to the restroom, taking a shower, pretty much assistance with everything. Once they get to a point where assisted living is no longer a fit, that might be more of a skilled nursing or the intermediate care facility. So this is where somebody might need they need much higher level of care. They can't do anything usually on their own. They also might have, this point, they might also need more memory care settings. A secure environment. And then from that point, where you've got the skilled nursing, you move up to that memory care situation. And memory care is going to be different because it is a fully secure environment. So the doors, you can come in, usually you're going to have a door before you can go into the memory care where you're greeted by a staff member there to make sure that person, they can't get out of the building because it's a safety thing. Memory care offers so much though. There's more and more of these communities are out there are learning how to deal with people in different situations with memory concerns. And they can be very challenging. They might be very generalized. It might be just very confused, very pleasant, but it also might be a lot of the situations with behavioral issues. And that's where you go into the memory care situation or the facilities. Any questions so far? This next one talks about when it is time to make a move as well. And it talks about how moves can be especially traumatic for older people. So one of the things that we talk about is to stay positive. Be very honest with the people. Discuss how this is going to help them, how it's going to help offer a safe, how they can stay safe, offer an opportunity to enjoy life every day without all the stresses of keeping up with the house. And then also make sure that the person is involved in the situation. When I talk with families, I tell them, there's senior living real estate agents, I like to call them, or placement agencies out there. And these people you don't pay a dime for them to help you. So you probably have heard of like a Place for Mom. That's a big, you'll see it on commercials on the television. These people will come in and they'll go through a whole set of questions for you, and they'll find out what's really important. They'll understand the care situation for you. And then they'll narrow it down for you and say, okay, based on what you've told me, these 3 or 4 places are going to be really good fits for you. And then have you go tour those places, because there's hundreds of places all over the place, and you don't have the time to do that. It just gets too overwhelming, because by that point, you're doing the caregiving. You're spending so much time. I can't imagine somebody having to, go to 100 different places to find the right place for mom or dad. But then once you find those few places and you narrow it down, make sure that they're part of that process so they can see it for themselves. When they have that buy-in themselves, it makes it so much better for the process, because they kind of own that and say, okay, I want to go here. Thank you for sharing all of what's available, but this feels like home to me. That's what my grandma told me. When we looked at places, she walked in and she said, this one feels like home. And that's how we knew. But it was only her that could make that decision. This one talks about senior living options that are available, and we're going to go to this next slide. So this goes kind of the whole gamut of living at home all the way through hospice care. And so you see you've got the home health care. So when somebody is needing home health care, this is going to be like physical therapy, occupational therapy. If you've had somebody at home that had a fall or some type of event that caused them to go to the hospital, the doctor said, you know what, you're really going to benefit from some additional care at home. We're going to schedule some therapy to come in 3 times a week and work with you on some different things. That's always going to be paid by Medicare. Medicare is going to cover that up to a certain point. There might be a certain percentage that you'll have to pay for out of your own pocket or have additional insurance. Independent living is going to be the next one up. Again, we talked about that a little bit. That's going to be the lowest level of care. You can still have your very own apartment. Usually these are places that are not licensed by the state of Missouri. They're just homes for older people. And so they usually will be like 62 years or older in order to be able to live in one of these communities. Then you've got your assisted living. Again, we kind of talked about that a little bit. On to memory care, where somebody might need that additional support because of memory loss. The skilled nursing facilities. And then lastly is the hospice. And hospice is our end of life situation. That can be done at home, or it can be done at a community as well, in an assisted living setting. as well. So here's the next slide here. Independent living is minimal care needs. They're larger apartments that are, they have generally full kitchens, meals, activities, transportation is usually all included. But they provide that social interaction, which a lot of people, when they do lose a spouse, or maybe it might be a husband and wife, but maybe one is just they like to stay at home a lot, and the other wants to be busier, but they know they have to stay close because they support each other. You know, you gotta have the two together. But that's generally the independent living. The CCRC, or the Continuing Care Retirement Community, is what I was mentioning. That's like your Delmar Gardens, that's your Lutheran Senior Service. Those are the communities that offer the full continuum of care available on site. So one of the things that they do is they offer the independent, the assisted living, memory care, and that skilled nursing. Sometimes they offer an entry fee. So it just really depends. If you go to St. Louis side, Lutheran Senior Services offer, you have to pay a large fee up front. So it could be like $100,000. Some places like Friendship Village go on up to like $400,000 as an entry fee. Some people just don't have that kind of money to be able to hand over. But what it offers is usually a life care guarantee. So once you go into that community and maybe start off in the independent living setting, it guarantees you a spot as you need care through that entire continuum. So as you start to need assistance with care, they're probably gonna have you move from the independent living building to the assisted living building now, and then onward as your care level changes. The next one is gonna be, whoops. How do I go back? Maybe that one? Oh, good, I did it right. The assisted living is going to be the residential setting. They're going to offer that personalized support services, assistance with all activities of daily living, dressing, bathing, grooming, the medication management. As I mentioned before, this is going to be a licensure designation, and then it has different degrees of care based on what state you live in. And then the other thing to this is important to understand is the pricing structure, the room versus the care. Because they're always gonna offer, like, starting rates are gonna be maybe $4,500, but then generally in an assisted living, you're most likely gonna need a care level, because that's why you have to go there. You need care. And then they've got those different packages. And then the other one is gonna be the memory care. So it is that secured setting. They've got programs that are tailored to the special needs of memory care. These people go through a lot of training to deal with the different care situations. They foster residents' individual skills and interests in an environment that helps diminish confusion. So like when you look at maybe some of them will have the emergency doors and they'll paint a bookshelf. So it doesn't look like a door, it looks like a bookshelf. So there's a lot of things that they do to really make it an easy space to live in. That's less confusing for them. The skilled nursing, this is gonna offer the 24-hour nursing oversight. So in these communities, they always are gonna have a nurse on the site 24 hours a day. This is covered by, sometimes it's covered by Medicare and Medicaid, depending on where you go. Medicaid is when somebody has no financial ability to pay for the care. Medicare is what we use when we need care to go to the doctor, medications, and things like that. But the skilled nursing facilities all could be a short-term stay too. So these could be like somebody having, maybe it's a fall or an accident. It could be something medically that happened with them, a heart attack, a stroke. They get the care in the hospital first, and then from there they've been given not a prescription, but the ability to go on to a skilled setting, and it could be a very part-time situation. It might be they're there for 2 weeks, it might be they're there for 60 days, depending on what they need. As long as they generally are getting better and taking the care in and it's working, they're able to stay there longer. Once a resident hits a point, or a patient in this case, hits a point where they've plateaued and they're no longer showing any improvement, they're most likely going to have them move back to either home or their care facility setting. So that's kind of how that works. And then the last thing on here is the end-of-life support. And this is a Medicare covered benefit. This coverage can expand over a year, longer, 6 months. It can take place in your home. It can take place wherever home might be. Home might be the assisted living. It might be the skilled nursing setting or the memory care. But the room and board are generally not covered in a hospice situation. It is, it's care that they're going to need to help pay for. Maybe it's the medical supplies. If they needed a nursing bed, they'd be able to get the bed covered by the Medicare. Through hospice. If they need any undergarments like the adult diapers, those are generally always covered by Medicare through hospice. So there's a lot that is covered free by the hospice services. So those are a lot of questions I get when I talk about hospice. Is it's always end of life and it's death and it's doom and it's gloom. But there's so much that people can benefit from hospice services, and I've seen so many people graduate off of hospice. They got better because of all that additional care and support that they got. They got better and they graduated off of it, and then they went back to their living situation. So it's not always what people think for hospice. The next one is going to be the short-term stays. This is like a respite suite. So it might be that the main caregiver, these are generally available in assisted living or memory care. Maybe the husband is in the hospital getting care and he has to go to rehab, and he's the primary caretaker for his wife. And his wife has memory care issues. She can't live at home safely any longer. Or maybe she has to live in an assisted living situation because she's a high fall risk. She needs assistance going to the bathroom, taking showers, getting dressed. They offer these respite suites that you can usually get they're usually a week. They usually want the person to be able to stay there for a week at a minimum. But they can generally stay there as long as the person needs. So it is a temporary situation that somebody can use. It also talks about here, it's also another great way. Some communities allow it as like an option to try it out, see if they like it. So they can move in there for a week and kind of see, what it's like to try. What's the staff like? How's the food? Food is a really big deal. How's the food taste here? Do I like the way that the apartments are structured? So it's a good little test too. But it's a great break for caregivers if they need to. If maybe it's the daughter and the son that are taking care of their mom at their home, and they want to go on a vacation and take a little time off because they are stressed. This is a great way that they can, take that break and feel comfortable knowing that someone's taking care of their loved one in a safe manner. The next one here talks about that home health care again. Again, it's Medicare reimbursed if the physician has prescribed it. It is generally short-term in nature. Sometimes it's private pay or private duty is also available for them. So this is private pay. You've probably heard the word of home care, and home health is different from home care. So home care, and it doesn't have it on here as an option, but home care is when somebody needs just assistance with activities of daily living. You've got a caregiver that comes into the home and generally helps them with, maybe it's meal preparation, cleaning their house, maybe doing some laundry. That could be one thing that they take care of, but it's all privately paid for. And then the home health is going to be what's covered generally by Medicare. And then that would be prescribed by the physician. The last thing on here is the adult daycare. This is generally offered in an assisted living kind of setting. This is another respite option for people. So my father-in-law, this is something that we've been talking to him about with my mother-in-law, is when he needs that break to kind of get away and go out to the property and check on things, make sure it's okay. All of us work. So where's mom going to go? Well, we're talking about adult daycare for her now. As an option, it's a short-term stay. It's not overnight, but it's a good little break away for him to be able to go out to the property and take care of business and know that she's in a safe setting. And generally, as it says on here, it's usually 8 hours. It's no longer than that. The private pay, this is that these are options that are available for people to take care. If you need care in the home, as I mentioned, this is going to help somebody with those private things like getting getting care for like showering, toileting, taking baths, and those kind of things. It also talks on here about the costs of the situation, like an independent living or an assisted living. So they can run, independent livings can run anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, depending on what building it is. They all have different prices. So knowing somebody's budget is really important when we're looking at these options. Assisted living and memory care can run anywhere from, I'd say, in the upper $3,000, and even into the $9,000 and $11,000 range. There's some communities that are really, really high end, if you've got the money to pay for it. The last thing on here talks about long-term care insurance. These are all the financial options, I forgot to say that. Long-term care insurance, a lot of people don't have this. This is something, when I talk to my families, this is something that requires a medical diagnosis. This is something that somebody purchased a long time ago, usually in the 80s and 90s when I'm talking to these families. In order to access that benefit, you have to have assistance with at least 2 activities of daily living. So they need to have somebody help them get dressed. They need to have somebody help them get on the toilet or shower. Every policy is different. No policy is written the same. So if you have a policy, it is really important to read through it to see what it really covers, because none of them are going to be identical. There generally is an elimination period, so you have to pay privately for up to 90 days before that would kick in. What happens, though, is once you do activate that policy and you start paying on it, you no longer have to pay for the monthly cost. So that's what goes away. So if somebody's paying $3,500 a year for this long-term care policy, once they're getting the care, they don't have to pay for it any longer, and then they start receiving that benefit. And the benefit is usually like a dollar amount per day. So it might say that in a home care setting, maybe they'll pay $100 a day. In assisted living, they might pay $150 a day. Skilled nursing or memory care might pay $198 a day. They're all different. But it kind of gives you an idea of what they'll actually pay for. This is for Medicare. So Medicare covers post-acute, SNF is skilled nursing facility stay up to 100 days. So the initial 20 days are covered at 100%, and then the remaining days will require a copay. Again, this is physician prescribed, and it's generally in a home health or skilled nursing setting. It covers hospice as well, 100%. It also covers physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy services, if the physician prescribes it, in home or in the skilled setting. The next one is veteran benefits, and this one's becoming more and more, people are more aware of this now. Before it was really, I would talk to so many people that had no idea that there was even a veteran benefit. They did all this time in the service, they deserve this care that is covered for them. But veterans and their spouses may be eligible for funding that covers assisted living, housing, and other care services. Again, this is going to be, it is income qualified. There's a lot of different things to get this person qualified for the VA benefit. Again, you do need to have that medical diagnosis that requires assistance in those activities of daily living. For a veteran, they would get the $2,200, and a spouse would get $1,300. Each year, this number changes. So it's really important to know and call and talk with somebody to find out what is the benefit this year. And does my loved one qualify for this? The last thing on here is the tax benefits. A lot of people don't even know that this is even available out there, but the IRS allows deductions for room and care if they're requiring at least assistance in those activities of daily living. So this can be very beneficial to somebody who's taking care of somebody, and give them a little bit of a tax break. So adult children can claim the deduction if the parent is claimed as a dependent and on their income taxes. So if you haven't talked about this with your tax preparer, this would be a great conversation to have to kind of understand what all are we paying for, what all can this benefit cover. Legal documents, this is another one that a lot of people just aren't prepared. And in my experience, this is when I start to see issues come between family members, when it talks about money, when it talks about what medical care does mom want, what does dad want. A power of attorney is a really, really important document to put it in place. And it authorizes a child or caregiver, whoever it is, to administer someone's financial and personal affairs when they can no longer do it. The durable power of attorney remains in effect if your loved one becomes mentally incapacitated. And a medical power of attorney enables a family member to make decisions regarding medical care for their loved one. They cannot make, and this is the thing that people say is, oh, I'm not going to put a power of attorney in place because I can make my own decisions. That's fine. As long as you can make your own decisions, the power of attorney doesn't matter. It's just going to sit here and it's going to be ready for you when you need it. When you have a stroke and you can't speak for yourself, and you need help with your medical care, this is a document that your family member can bring to the hospital and say, I authorize this to happen for my loved one. I'm their medical power of attorney. So those are really important documents to get in place. If you haven't met with an elder law attorney, that is one of the things I tell every family, go do it if you haven't done it yet. It's a great planning tool for people that are aging. Additional to that is the advanced directives. With an advanced directive, this is basically something that states what care do you want to receive when you can no longer speak any longer. This is like a do not resuscitate, an order where a patient or a resident in my community, if they say that if they code and they're laying on the floor, they do not want to be resuscitated, this is how you tell your family that you don't want to be resuscitated. Living will documents. These are just documents that tells someone how they want to be treated if they can no longer do it or if they're terminally ill. And a lot of people don't want any care. There's a lot that happens that people don't realize when somebody who is 95 years old, who has osteoporosis and is laying on the floor and they try to resuscitate them, it's very detrimental and it can cause worse things for them. So if they do want these things in place, this is how that you communicate that so you can still speak when you can't speak. It provides, for me, it provides that peace of mind that I know my residents, if they've got these documents in place, they're going to be taken care of. And their family knows exactly what they want. So this one is supporting the adult caregivers, and these are some resources that I wanted to bring up here. So we've got a lot of different ways that we can help out with resources with ARP, the Alzheimer's Association. If you didn't know, they're doing the walk this weekend. So on Saturday, if you want to join us at the St. Charles Community College, it's a great resource, though, for people who don't know how to have the conversations, don't know what is available. There's a lot of different things on here, caregiver.com, just some good websites that you can check out for some resources. And that's that. What questions you guys have? Anything I can help with?
If you do have a question, you have to speak into the mic because we're live.
Okay. Any questions online or?
So far, not online. We have a few people watching, so.
Okay. Well, I'm available. I've got my information. If anyone has any questions, if you'd like to speak with me personally, one-on-one after today's presentation, or schedule a meeting and have a talk with me, I'd love to help you all out. So thank you so much for having me here.